Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Rita Koutsoudiemos. I'm the Executive Director of the BC Alliance for Healthy Living. And I just wanted to start by acknowledging that this webinar is being broadcast from the traditional territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I myself am joining from the Sunshine Coast on the unceded traditional territory of the Squamish and BCAHL, where I had the privilege to live and raise my family. And I'm really grateful for this beautiful place and also have just the deepest respect for the people who have been stewards of these lands and these waters for generations. So thank you for joining our webinar today on promoting active play after school. We all hear it being said that active children are healthy and happy children. And that's why so many families sign children up for various clubs, sports, and other recreation activities. But not every parent or family has the opportunity to do this. Cost is one of the biggest barriers for many families. But sometimes, there are other barriers as well. Programming can be at the wrong time. It's too far away. Maybe there's a travel requirement. And not all parents want to put their kids into competitive sports. Or sometimes even when you get the right program for the right price at the right time, there's not enough space. It gets sold out. So this is where our latest initiative of the BC Alliance for Healthy Living, Active Play Club, comes in. So these clubs are designed to give elementary and middle school children the opportunity to just stay and play on school grounds when classes are over. And then what we're working with is just really light supervision for adults, more for the parents to feel to feel safe, so that kids can play and be active however they want to. We know from our pilot programs this spring that tag and moonballs and soccer and climbing trees have been very popular, as well as playing with loose parts or building pyramids and of course swinging on the monkey bars. So BCAHL will be expanding in the upcoming school year. We'll be providing grants and support to help other school communities get started on their own active play club. So we really hope that many of you in the audience will be inspired to get involved with an active play club for the kids in your own neighborhood. Today, you'll hear from a few communities about how they set up their active play club, the benefits that they've seen, and you'll have a chance to ask questions about running a club like this. We have an excellent program, but before we get started, so we'll really want to get a dialogue going on. We want you to be able to ask questions and have a discussion. So just type in the questions for our speakers as you think of them, and we're going to save the questions till after all of the presentations and just have a good roundtable discussion afterwards. And because we always get this questions, yes, we will be posting the full broadcast and presentation slides on our website after this webinar is over. So just to give you some context here, so as the Healthy Living Alliance, we like to talk a lot about the health benefits of physical activity, but with active play, there's so much more. So looking across the life course, physical activity has been recognized as one of the most effective ways to decrease the risk of various chronic diseases, including diabetes, heart disease, cancer. But in the earlier years, it's really essential for healthy childhood development, supporting brain, heart, and lung health, muscular fitness, and bone strength. Active play also supports mental well-being. It helps with stress management and promotes social connectedness. Through play, children naturally develop fundamental movement skills and the intrinsic joy of movement. And that's the sort of thing that will really help them stay active later in life, through their life. So we deliberately designed Active Play Club to promote unstructured activity because we know from the research that children are more active, And they move more of the time when they are free to create their own games and run around and move how they want to. When we let kids play freely, that is, when we don't tell them when and how to move and just let them play on their own with their friends, it gives them a chance to be creative and social, to learn about themselves, their physical abilities, as well as their limits. So the Canadian Pediatric Society says unstructured play helps kids develop their problem solving and conflict resolution skills, as well as their resilience. And leading injury prevention experts also promote unstructured play because when children understand their bodies and abilities, they're also learning how to gauge physical risks better. So by offering Active Play Club for free at school and close to home, we're removing those costs and transportation barriers so that those health and wellness benefits are available to more children of all backgrounds. So our speakers today will tell you about how they set up their Active Play Clubs in their school community last year, who they partnered with, how their model worked, and the lessons they learned. We hope this will give you some ideas you might have in terms of leading your own to serve the local kids in your area. And after the presentations, as I mentioned, we'll have a question and answer period. So our first presenter, Stephen Roberts, will tell us about the partnership between the City of Penticton and Queen's Park Elementary that delivered a much needed program for that neighborhood. Our second presenters, Nicole Hudikoff and Alice Ward, will explain how the City of Kelowna partnered with a local nonprofit to deliver the Active Play Club in 2 elementary schools. And our third presenter, Sarah Wright, will tell us how her nonprofit program supported children's physical literacy and bike skills in Campbell River. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Stephen Roberts. Stephen is the Recreation Coordinator for Children and Youth with the City of Penticton, which means he oversees all programming for children and youth across the city. He works to create inclusive, engaging, and developmentally enriching experiences for the community's young people. And since moving from England, he's worked in Canada as an early childhood educator, led outdoor early learning recreation programs, and managed a childcare center. And I understand Natalia Jimenez Torres is going to be joining him later, and she's one of the physical activity facilitators for Active Play at Queen's Park Elementary and has previously worked with Penticton's Generation Health Program. So thank you for joining us today, Stephen. I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Can everyone see and hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Rita. So yes, I'm Stephen Roberts. I'm the Recreation Program Coordinator for Children and Youth of the City of Penticton. I'm joining you guys today from the traditional unceded territory of the Silver Okanagan people. And I know I'm very fortunate to live and play and work on these lands and bring programs to the whole community. We can go, Twyla. Okay, so first I wanted to start off by talking about how setting up the Active Play Club as a municipal partner looked. Next slide. Okay, so we were connected with the BC Alliance for Healthy Living through another program we ran in the fall prior to Active Play Club. It was called Generation Health, and that was another free program that we offered to the community. It was well received, well attended, and we were very fortunate that through that, we ended up finding out about the Active Play Club grants. So how I began, I reached out to some of our program leaders that ran Generation Health to see if they'd be interested in running Active Play Club also. And 2 of our leaders were very eager to join. And then I applied for the grant. It was a very easy process, laid out nicely. The questions were very easy to answer. And the support that we got through applying for the grant from the BC Alliance for Healthy Living was phenomenal, and I couldn't have done it without them. I built the program in our programming software, so using our program parameters, and which I'll go over a bit later in the presentation. And then from there, we added it into our recreation guide so the people in the community could see it. And then from there, we connected with community partners such as the school district. So we're conveniently located across the road from Queen's Park Elementary School, and we have a great working relationship with the principal there. And as soon as I brought this idea to him, he was on board to partner with us and help let us use the facilities in the school, such as the bathrooms and everything. And he wanted to get this out to the families in his school because of the lack of out of school care opportunities for children. Next slide. So the next question was identifying the school or neighborhood to have the club at. So social demographic was very important to take into consideration. And we serve Penticton, and then as well as outlying communities such as Summerland, sometimes Oliver, like people coming from Oliver. We have Caledon, Naramata. So we're kind of a central hub for a lot of outlying communities. And this program wasn't just for Penticton, it was open to anyone who used our facility and came to the community centre. We're located across the road from an elementary school, so Queen's Park, that served a broad demographic. This was perfect because it was conveniently located. We felt the program could make a huge difference for the children attending that school. Like I mentioned before, I connected with the principal, Scott, and he offered some insight into what the needs of the school were and what the needs of the children and families were. So we found it was great to have his support and want to partner with us. And then once we moved on in the process, he sent out the poster to all of the people in his school, and that was primarily where we got most of our children in the program from. We considered what spaces we could utilize and run the program successfully. So we're very fortunate. We have lots of green spaces around us, lots of playgrounds, splash parks. The beach is like a 2-minute walk. So when considering running an active play club, I took into account all that we could offer. And they were all within walking distance as well. Next slide, Violet. So the next question was who was involved in the setup process. And so obviously our active play club partners, so the BC Alliance for Healthy Living, myself as the recreation program coordinator for children and youth, and then from there, my staff and program leaders who run programs for us anyway, like Natalia, who you'll meet later on, and then the local school and the school district. Okay, so once we started up, so parents registered using the booking software that we have now. And then from there, once I had all attendance and registration, I sent them our emergency and medical forms for the children to fill out. Just our generic children and youth program forms. Then we used the school as a local home base for drop off and pick up. And then with building the great partnership with the school, we made the home base there on their playground, and then we were allowed to use the school washrooms. And we spoke to the children's teachers, so there was connection there. And then my staff and the leaders brought equipment from the community center where we stored it to the school playground, which is just over the road. And then we had like our sign-in process. The children joined us as soon as they finished school. And then overall, the staff had their basic plan for like timing and schedule. And then the children decided what they wanted to do from there, with the leaders just supervising and facilitating when needed. How did you operate? So we ran 1 day a week on a Wednesday, and that was all based on the leaders' availability. And then we ran it as 2 staff to 12 children. The ratio may seem very small, but I was unsure of what the program was going to look like and wanted the leaders to feel supported and the quality of the program to remain stellar. So, and that was all based on how I wanted to start the program, as in I'd never run a program offsite before. So that all went into how I decided to choose how many children to offer it to. And for the equipment, I found I purchased a variety of different sports equipment, lawn games, outdoor toys, and the grant was very generous, and we were so fortunate to receive it. Um, we could purchase high quality equipment. I did one big purchase at the start of the program, and then through staff observations, I then continued to buy more equipment based on what the children were interested in. Snack, we offered snack to the children, and it was open so they ate when they felt like it. It was a huge hit. I purchased the snack weekly, and then the children started to put in requests for snack, which was hilarious. And I found they'd done a lot of bonding during that snack time. So they all sat and like were conversing before they went off to like play or do the activities and games. Spaces, so we utilized the school playground, the green spaces around the community center, and also had access to other playgrounds and green spaces in the community. Like I mentioned before, we're conveniently located, so having access to these areas really helped boost the program and quality as well. Did the partnership work well for you? Yes. We have phenomenal support from the BC Alliance for Healthy Living Society and the Active Play Club team. We developed great partnerships with the school, the principal, the children's teachers. Our program leaders developed strong relationships with the children and their families. And it was very, very sad, like when Active Play Club came to an end and the children were like making connections beyond the club and just from what they made in Active Play Club. The feedback was well received. The principal requested that we reach out to the Active Play Club again. So it was nice to community and then try and expand it. So we had some children with high needs than we anticipated, and that came to us from the school. So I was very fortunate that I had program leaders that had the great skills and abilities to accommodate the children and make sure that they had a successful time with us. Um, and this is something I would take into account every time I play with the game, making sure that we have the right tools and training to support the kids that are coming to us. So
Even is it possible for you to speak closer into the microphone? Because it is coming, your audio is coming in a little bit choppy.
very close. It's only
That's inaudible. Yeah. I don't know why. It just seemed to, it was fine earlier, but it seemed to kind of cut out.
I just joined the game with me audio. Is this better?
No, this is better. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry guys, technology. Um, so yes, we had some children with higher needs. Having the staff to help with that is something I would take into consideration when we're running the club again. Um, Including the children's voices in planning was key, as that helped us purchase the right equipment for them and to bring what they wanted to the Active Play Club. They shared their wants and their thoughts, and that influenced everything we did. I think observing the kids and taking into account what they want helps run a successful play club. As it was our first time running the program, I was learning throughout the whole process. So the needs of the children and staff, communication with parents and families, and then a general vision of how I wanted the program to look. What worked well and what did not. And so what worked well? So our partnerships, we could not have done it without the Active Play Club team. the registration process. We were very fortunate that we have a program set up already to go. Um, Supplying the children with the resources and materials they needed. Um, it was responsive to their ideas, so this was also great. Snacks, huge hit, very popular. They loved it. And the location, were very conveniently located. And then leader documentation. I think for anybody starting Active Play Club, document, document, document. Like the children give you exactly what you need to give them what they need. And then what did not work well. So overall, I think we ran a successful program. We did have some children with behavioral challenges, but that's to be expected when you bring in programs to children and youth. And just making sure you have the right staff with the right skills and abilities to help navigate that is key. What would you do differently next time? So I like the way we ran our program. I would love to have the program in different elementary schools in the area. So I wouldn't change much about the process or the structure, and the feedback from the families and the children was great. I would have to figure out some logistics if we were to run it in other elementary schools. So staff traveling to and from those schools, where we would store the equipment. Are there already programs running in that elementary school, after school programs? So this is all stuff I would take into account if we were to run again. And I think I'd do that through building partnerships with different schools in the community, and then just seeing what and how we could do for them. And I think that's the end of my slides.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. That's lovely. It's just really nice to hear how you were able to develop that program, especially for the kids at Queen's Park, and really target it to a group of kids that kind of needed that,
Yeah.
who were lacking those opportunities. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So everyone, I would invite you to add your questions. If you have any questions, enter them into the Q&A function. And and as I said before, we'll do the questions at the end. So next up, so thanks so much, Stephen. Next up, it's my pleasure to introduce Nicole Hudikoff and Alice Ward. Nicole is the Family Support Services Coordinator at Childhood Connections, a family resource center based in Kelowna. And she has a strong background in early childhood development. She brings valuable experience from previous roles in the community as a supportive childcare provider, a behavioral interventionist, and early childhood educator. Alice is the Child Care Development Coordinator at the City of Kelowna, and she has a background in early childhood education, a passion for supporting families and young children. And since joining the city 3 years ago, she's contributed to community well-being through her work in recreation, supporting building operations at Parkinson Recreation Center, as well as facilitating off-site community program. So thank you both. I'll turn it over to you now.
Hello, everybody. We are joining you from the traditional and ceded territory of the Okanagan Silks people. I'm Alice, and this is Nicole.
Hi, guys. We're so happy to be here. So to get started, how we actually got started with Active Play Club is very similar to Stephen, is that in the winter, we ran Generation Health, and we were introduced to the BC Alliance Healthy Living Society, where we were able to have a meeting and just to talk about what Active Play Club could look like for Kelowna. And because we had already partnered with that, that was a really important aspect of how we got started. Next slide, please, Twyla. So I'm just gonna talk about like the partnership and relationship building. So this was a really key piece to Active Play Club starting. So as I said, we had already partnered and with the city of Kelowna and in the Generation Health. We also in the Central Okanagan run a table called the Central Okanagan Early Years Partnership. And at that table, it's nonprofits and different agencies that work with families and children, primarily focused on 0 to 6, but many of us run other services for children. And so that's where a lot of these relationships came. So we have a very strong relationship with ST23. And I think how Stephen said, like, just to acknowledge, like, it didn't just work as just one like nonprofit or just the city doing it, is that we had to work all together with the admin, with the school district, with the city, and we all brought different pieces to this relationship and making this a successful program. Next slide.
So kind of like Stephen as well, we gathered a few statistics from the schools that we thought would really benefit from this. So the two schools were Watson Road Elementary, which we knew had kind of a growing wait list for after school care, and then Glenmorey Cole, which didn't have a lot of services on site. And so we just worked with administrative staff at both of those schools, and we talked with the school principals, and they were really on board with offering something like this. So yeah, they're big schools. Watson has approximately 630 students. Glenmore has over 650, really diverse schools with lots of different speakers of different languages, people who have come to Canada to settle. We thought it was a really great opportunity to work with some of these schools.
And I think as well, a piece with these large schools is, and when we talked to the admin, they were really interested in the unstructured play and having this opportunity. But a big piece that they had identified was belonging for the children and feeling like they belonged at the school and building that village. And with these schools, so grade 4 has 4 classes, 4 different classes of grade 4 at both of these schools. So often what happens is these students actually don't ever overlap if they're not in the classes, even though they're in the same grades. So a great piece of bringing active play together was sometimes these children, they had been in school for 4 years together, but had actually never met because they hadn't crossed paths in the same classes. So that was a really big piece that we heard from admin as well. Next slide.
So the enrollment process. So we sent out an introduction email to all the parents, and it was actually came from the principals themselves, so that we didn't want to send out an email from our address because we thought some people might not open that or they think it's spam. So we got the administrative staff to send that out through the school district. We offered 2 days a week at each school. So at Watson Elementary, we did Tuesday, Thursdays. At Glenmore, we did Monday, Wednesdays. And that was the idea that the staff that we hired would kind of at least have almost a full week's worth of work. And then we offered it from 2:30, so right when the bell rings, until 4 p.m. Registration process, we used Google Forms, and it worked out really smoothly. In that introduction to the program, we told them when the registration date would be, and then on that registration date, we sent out the Google Forms, and it surprisingly filled up in 2 minutes. So within 2 minutes, the program was completely full, which was pretty astonishing to both of us. We didn't know how it was going to go, so that was really great to see. A way that we removed barriers is we worked with both principals at the schools to identify families that might have difficulty enrolling through the Google document. Might be English as a second language, and so this was a really big barrier for them. And once those families were identified, Nicole and I worked with them as well as the administrative staff to get them on board and get them enrolled. And the way we identified and anticipated some of the needs is we just had a question at the end of our registration form, which is, was there anything you'd like our staff to know about your child that would help your child be successful in this program? And it just allowed parents opportunity to say if their child had a diagnosis or what they thought worked really well. And it was kind of cute, the responses, because some of them would say, my child has ADHD. Some of them were just like, my child is adorable. So it was kind of neat to see what people, interpreted that question as, but we found it really useful to kind of know what we were getting into with some of those kiddos.
And with that relationship piece that we had talked about before, is after we had our Google, like our whole sheet of the children that were coming, we were able to share that with the admin staff, the principal and vice principal. So they were able to share with us too of, oh, this child may need or anticipate needs that we needed to let our leaders know about as well. Next slide. Okay, so this is what our program details looked like. And so what we did is we hired two staff. So our ratio that we did was 2 to 24. So
Mhm.
one staff to 12 children. And the reason that we chose that was in licensing after school care for kindergarten to grade uh, six,
Mhm.
yeah, is the 1 to 12 ratio. Now, what we did is we chose to only allow children from grades 2 to grade 6 to enroll in this program. And the reason that we chose that was because of the supervision. We felt that the kindergartens grade 1 would need that extra supervision and wouldn't allow what our philosophy for active play and light supervision would look like. It was really neat to see the variety of ages that came to the program. So the staff that we hired, as Alice had said, we ran the program at two schools twice a week. So they had 4 shifts a week, and their shifts were 2:30 till 4. We made sure that our staff that we hired had childcare background, had first aid, understood about supervision as well, and maybe was able to deal with behaviors and communication.
For equipment, it was quite similar to what Stephen was saying. We got some soccer balls. I love the idea of large yard games. We didn't do that, but I think we might in the future if we
Yeah.
do this again. But moon balls I hadn't heard of them. They were a huge hit. Basketballs, I think we got some skip ropes, and we just kind of stored it all in a Rubbermaid bin. And we worked with the administrative staff to keep that bin on site. So that was really nice so that our staff weren't hauling the equipment back and forth through their vehicles. They could just arrive on the school, go grab the bin and present it. The snacks were a huge hit and a great asset because a lot of these families, giving their kids lunch and snacks throughout the school day, often by the end of the school day, they've eaten everything and they're hungry. And we see that a lot in licensed after school care that kids just don't have enough food to last them until that end of the day, until, 4 p.m. So having that was really great. And we provided snacks that we knew could be kept on site, and then fresh fruit we would bring in every Monday so that they had an option of a fresh fruit and then as well as a bar.
So our waivers and paperworks, as we said, we used Google Forms to do the registration. And then Alice actually brought in the waivers from a different program with City of Kelowna, because what we noticed was so what would happen is the children would come sign in with us, and then the parents would be expected to sign their children out. But a lot of the children at one of or both of the schools actually would walk home. So we had a waiver that allowed children to walk home and leave the site. And then there were questions on there asking, like, would you like a text before to allow you to know that your child is coming? And this was just for liability for us, just because. And that was a really big key piece for the school when we started, was that liability piece of who's responsible for the kids. So we're really happy that we did do the waivers. And then we also had expectations sent out to the parents. The expectations of the parents, expectations of the children that were attending, and expectations of our staff. So these are some of the ones: was have fun, be respectful, learn through play, be a positive role model. We had asked with those expectations too of communication of the parents to let us know if anything was happening, if their child was going to be away or sick as well.
Mhm. And those waivers came in handy too, because we did have some little sneaky kids who said, "Oh, I can walk home today." And so it was nice for our staff to be like, "No, actually, we don't have that paperwork for you." And then we can contact mom to make sure that is something that is happening. So it was a really big liability piece, and I'm glad we had it.
Yeah.
Next slide, please, Twyla. So highlights of the program. This was one of the quotes that was sent to us. I'll just read it real quick. I also wanted to express immense appreciation to you and your team for providing this opportunity. The design and structure of this program makes it accessible, not only from a financial perspective, but also from a point of inclusion, since it's delivered right on school grounds. This has been a challenging barrier, amongst others, for our neurodiverse boys. The extra support means so much for our family, and we hope the program will return again next school year. So we sent out a little feedback form after the first session was over, and we got so many great feedbacks from parents and people who want to come back again. And just talking about how has this not been offered before? Parents were just so enthusiastic about it and so grateful to have something that really brought that community feel back to their school. And like Nicole was mentioning earlier, brought kids together that might not necessarily have met before or knew each other, especially in a school that's so big. So it was really nice to get some of that feedback.
And we also did some debriefing with the admin staff as well after to ask what were their highlights, what did they want, what did they change. And so both schools were very excited to want to see this program come back. And like they said, they were seeing relationships in the hallway that they hadn't seen before of children that weren't in the same classes, and opportunities for certain children that would just go home and maybe go on screens. So they just loved being able to see those things as well. Something that we really noticed was how much time it took children to remember how to play. And it was a little bit, it's not a highlight, but it was wonderful to see in the end. And what I really noticed too was it was the older children. It wasn't the grade twos. The grade twos seemed like the younger ones that were on site were able to just drop everything and play, but it was the grade sixes that really had to sit in that boredom and really figure it out. And it took a while, but it was such a highlight to see when it clicked and when they were just able to go.
Next slide, please. Okay, so some of our successes were enrollment. Definitely, the Google Forms seemed to work really well, and they filled up super fast. Enthusiasm for the program from administrative staff, from students, and from parents. Organization. I feel like Nicole and I put in a lot of hours to make sure we didn't mess this up. So, and just even from the staff that we hired and making sure that we're communicating with them was really beneficial. The food was a huge hit, and we would definitely want to offer that again. Having observations made on site from our staff that we hired was really helpful and beneficial, especially with those kids that did have behavioral issues. It just set us up for success. And like I said, communication is always key. And then we also really liked the program size. I felt like 24 kids was a good number. And with those two staff members that were able to watch them, it felt like a good ratio. And also just to make sure, we were noting at one of the schools at Watson, there are some blind spots. And so being able to have two staff to roam a little bit and be able to see where those blind spots are and make sure kids are still within sight was really good.
So another piece too of success that Alice had talked about was the food. And because we had the two different programs, what we would do is so Glenmore would have their food, and we would always provide fresh fruit and then like a pantry snack. So the fresh fruit on Wednesday at Glenmore, what we would do is we would pick it up and we would take it to Watson to make sure that and hope that there wasn't food waste. And then if there was anything left on the Thursday at Watson, we would then offer it to the school. So the school could use it on Friday and give to families that are in need or children that may not have as much food. Some of the challenges that we had, so one of the feedbacks that we got was identifying staff. And when we did this as a pilot, because it was successful, we only ran 1 month at a time. Next time when we do this, sorry, Alice, I'm totally skipping ahead,
That's okay.
is that we would run 3 months with the same cohort of children, just because to build that relationship. But because these schools were so large and so many people wanted into the program with the wait list, we just did 1 month with new kids. And so identifying staff. So when the children were first enrolled into the program, there's lots of parents, lots of after school care, lots of different people on site at these schools. So sometimes, even though we had a designated spot where they were meeting, they still sometimes the children weren't there right away, and we had to text the parents, or admin had to help the children find us. So what we did is we shifted right away into the program. And we got our staff to wear bright orange shirts that said City of Kelowna staff so that they were able to be identified. Pickups was another challenge that we had. So at first, what we had done is we had scheduled our staff till 4 o'clock because our program ran from 2:30, right when school ended, till 4 o'clock. And what we were noticing is that sometimes parents may be a little bit late because of traffic. And what we did then is we extended the time of the staff's hours just to be able to help out with when there were late pickups. Another part of the pickup that we had challenges was sometimes like a child is being picked up by one parent and another child was like, oh, I'm supposed to go home with Joe. And so definitely having those forms communication of like, oh, if you're supposed to be going home with Joe, just hold on one sec. Let's text your mom and make sure that she was okay with it. So I'm really glad that we had that communication and staff as well as having all those forms just handy and ready to go. Pickups as well is because one of the schools, Watson, had blind spots. We wanted to make sure like that the child was actually getting in the car with the parents if the parents were picking up. So we did ask parents like, please park your car and come get your child. Or like park that we can see your child actually getting into the car with the designated parent that's picking up. Food waste. We didn't have a ton of food waste, but there was a little bit of communication with our staff that they forgot to tell us that there was food and we got there and it was unfortunate, but that was at the very, very beginning of the program. And then we were able to just shift quite quickly to make sure that if there was any food at the school, Glenmore, on Wednesday, that we could shift that over to be provided to the Watson Road School for active play as well as their school. Staffing, our staff were really great, but our staff only worked 8 hours a week or 9 hours a week. So sometimes our staff weren't as reliable as always. So often it was Alice and I having to step in sometimes. And so one of the things that we have learned and we would move forward is we would actually hire a CEA from the school at each of the schools. And I think that this would help as well with the relationship building of the children, and they would know the children as well. And we know too that our CEAs, like they're working 5.5 hours. So what a great shift to be able to pick up like a 2-hour shift after school when you're already there. Children leaving on site. So we did have a couple children that were like, oh, my mom said I can go get a slushie at the gas station. I can go. And so we definitely having those liability forms to be able to communicate with the parent and not to be like, no, I don't think your mom said that. Of just like, oh, let me give your mom a quick text just to make sure that this is something that she's communicated with us. And so that definitely helped. And then language barrier, this came up just a couple times just because like our emails went out and they were all in English and both of these schools definitely had like English as a second language and that was very prominent in the children that were recruited. So just being able to be very mindful of making plain simple language and making sure that this is accessible for everyone.
Next slide. Yeah. So learning and key takeaways. So as Nicole was saying earlier with relationships, we did this as like 3 weeks at a time, but I think we would definitely want to extend it for those same group of kids so that they really get to know the instructors really get to know the kids. It felt like they were all just starting to like bond and get along, and then it was the next group of kids. So I think we would want to extend it to like a 3-month window at a time. But it was a great experience. Communication, just keeping those open lines of communication with school staff, active play staff, and families is just so important, as everyone knows. You know, if you don't have that communication there, it can fall apart very quickly. And then the importance of the program was a really big takeaway for us. Like we were excited to bring it, but didn't really realize how important this would feel for families to get that sense of community, especially those newcomers to Kelowna. So it really helped to fill a community need that was beneficial to both schools and families. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Excellent. Oh, thank you so much, Nicole and Alice. That's wonderful. And, you know, it just so nice to see that quote from the parent about it being inclusive and accessible, because that was really the whole raison d'etre, right? Like that was why we were doing it. And it sounds like you guys really created a really warm, lovely program and the kids were really thriving. It's so wonderful to hear about it. And I was so glad that we were able to capture some of that in our little video that we have of your program, which is so cute. And we'll make sure we share that with the webinar audience as part of the program afterwards. So thank you. And just again, please add your questions. Any questions you have for Nicole and Alice, add those to the Q&A. We'll have a Q&A afterwards, and I think there's a lot we can learn from all of these great programs. Next up, I have Sarah, who is the physical Sarah Wright, who is the physical literacy mentor and cycling skills coach at Play Campbell River. She is a practicing kinesiologist and certified exercise physiologist, and as well as working directly with educators on physical literacy through her physical literacy mentor role with Sport for Life. Sarah also assists newcomer families finding recreation opportunities through her work with the Immigration Welcome Center of North Vancouver Island. So thanks for joining us today, Sarah. We're really interested to hear about how you organize your programming in Campbell River. Over to you.
Thanks, everybody. We can go to the next slide, please, Kyla. I am thankful to be coming to you from the traditional territory of the Secwepemc and the Shuswap First Nation. I'm incredibly thankful to live and work and play in our province. And I'm usually in Campbell River on the traditional territories of the Lake-Wita people, the Hamelko First Nations, and many other Inuit and Métis families as well. So I come to the active play after school play program from kind of a different perspective. I've been involved in the Play Campbell River group since 2018. So we're just kind of a collaborative group coming from the health, education, recreation, and sport groups within Campbell River. Next slide, please. So some of our partners are listed on the side here. So we meet every 2 months and have done different projects throughout the community. So when I heard about this active school play program, it really aligned with Play Campbell River and what we're trying to do within our community. Next slide. And I guess a little bit more about me is my background is more in cardiac rehab, so helping people who maybe haven't exercised in their life, all of a sudden kind of having to use exercise in order to be more healthy and kind of coming from it from a different perspective. And then as a parent of twin boys who are now 17, I just really value physical literacy and free play as well. When my kids were in elementary school, staying after school and just giving them time to connect with friends and me connect with other parents was really foundational as a parent within our school district. So that's why this really appeals to me. So as a kinesiologist and physical literacy mentor, I helped one of the middle schools get an active school travel grant in 2022, tried to got another cycling grant as well to train coaches and offer free programming for the Hop On program. So I'm was coming at this also from just the chances for autonomy and really building independence in students when they can walk or bike to school, and as part of that after school time. So next slide, please. So we also worked with Hub Cycling. They approached us to offer a pilot project where they gave us a trailer full of bikes and offered Pro D training for teachers within our school district. So we ran that the 2024-2025 school year. So that was a really great chance for us to make a connection with all of the schools and kind of get an idea of how cycling savvy they are and what their barriers are to being more active before and after school. And one of the really essential partners within all of this was Sport for Life has funded a physical activity and physical literacy coordinator within our school district, just 2 days a week, full FTE, for the last 3 years. So that person really coordinates physical literacy within the school district and offers kind of mentors teachers on a voluntary basis. So having that partnership with that coordinator really helped to set up the program. And then we were able to get a Vision Zero grant through Island Health to purchase our own trailer and bikes. Next slide, please. So this spring, I really wanted to tackle Walk and Wheel Wednesdays and trying to create a bike bus within our community. So in hindsight, I definitely learned that I made it way too complicated. So I wanted kind of high school students and volunteer parents to help get kids from our neighborhood where I live, and help them to get to Pinecrest, Cedar School, Phoenix Middle School, the French Immersion Elementary, and then to finish off at the high school. So this was a major undertaking, and now I realize I should have just started with one elementary school. But that's okay. You got to do it to learn. And then, so this is where I applied for the after school program because Pinecrest Elementary got started and ended the earliest out of all of the schools that we were trying to offer our bike bus at. So I needed a way to kind of keep those kids busy so that they could catch the bus. Next slide, please. So the after school program was kind of the opportunity to give to that school and to kind of work into our bike bus and Walk and Wheel Wednesdays movement. Next slide again. So these are the few pictures that I took of our after school program. So we ran on Wednesdays, and we started in April, right after spring break, and did it every Wednesday until June 11th. So it was just a 1-hour program from 2:15 to 3:15. Next slide. So one of the main successes of our program was that Pinecrest has an amazing breakfast program at their school. So at the United Church right next door, they offer breakfast every morning, and they have like up to 40 or an average of 40 kids that come for breakfast. So I contacted that person, and she thankfully looked after all of the healthy snacks and all the volunteers for our after school program. And that really became a huge success. Like some grade 5 kids would bike by and know that there was snacks after school, and just kind of cruise around the school and then carry on onwards. we had between 20 and 45 kids, and we had it ended up being all parent supervised, just and grew through kind of word of mouth and us just being there every Wednesday. Um, so parents would also bring their younger kids as well. We really had it as free play, so the playground is right next door, or right on site. We kind of kept it to a forested and field and playground area. And the reason I spoke a little bit about the bike program was that I knew that our bikes were not being used for a lot of this time. So I ended up bringing a bunch of bikes, I think like 7 to 10 of various sizes and helmets, and just had them there for kids to use and for us to help them learn how to ride a bike in kind of a safe environment. So that was a huge success of our program. The last week or the last 2 weeks, I realized that the school had a Gaga ball, just a portable one. So my kids, when they were in elementary school, Gaga ball was just growing in our community. So I've now realized that there's I think it's called the Gagatron or something like that. So it's a portable Gaga ball set. So in our community, that's a huge, it's kind of like Foursquare, just a really popular activity in all of the elementary schools. And I had 2 EAs within this at Pinecrest that would help with supervision of the program. Which, as mentioned by the gals from Kelowna, it is really nice because they know a lot of the kids within the school, so they're familiar with their needs and that kind of thing. The only thing I found was that sometimes they really adhered to the rules of the school, and because that's what they're used to during the day, whereas in this program, we want things to be a little bit more, kids to have more freedom to just play as however they want to play. And next slide, please. So we, within our community and through Play Kemba River, we've offered these physical literacy kits at the regional library. So next time I would definitely maybe use some of these and have them on hand for the kids to use as they want to. Next slide. So if we're successful in a continuation of our program, we would look to offer our programming at Cedar Elementary. So it's a bit higher needs, more diverse school, and which is close by to Pinecrest. And I think one of the major drawbacks was, and just from working within the school district for the last few years, is that it will be really helpful to really try to make connections in September. And kind of, I've realized that if you come to a school after spring break, kind of the whole school year is already planned out. So it's really hard to kind of start a new program and that kind of thing. So I had tried to reach out to the middle school and high school leadership groups to see if they wanted to be involved, and really didn't get much success. So I'm hoping that if I'm there in September to connect with the groups, that I might get more volunteers from the leadership groups to help out with the program. Because I find in our community, it's really, there's not a lot of community building between elementary, middle, and high school. So I just think that's a really important thing for community building and sense of belonging and that kind of thing. The snacks, I will definitely be talking to Amy about coordinating snacks again. All the volunteers really enjoyed being a part of the program. So I don't think that will be a barrier. We did do the program mostly during just April to June, so the weather was almost always good. So we'll have to communicate with the school about accessing maybe some indoor spaces and that kind of thing. And yeah, just being prepared to kind of have a program set up for September, I think will make it easier for the school admin to communicate with parents and families as well, and for me to approach the PAC committee as well. I'm in discussions with the City of Campbell River Recreation staff to see if they can look after registration and maybe have their leaders in training also helping out with their program. So that I think will be far more successful. And I did have a Google form, but it didn't really work. It ended up just being kids coming with their parents mainly. So our program was pretty kind of unstructured. But that will be something that will be a much more formal thing for the upcoming program. I've already purchased Gaga Ball for Cedar because I know they don't have that portable set. So I use the funding from our pilot project for that. And then I'll definitely bring some of the bikes and helmets for if they're not being used at other schools. Next slide. I think that might be my last one. Yes, it is. So that is it for Campbell River.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I just love how you're really trying to engage the parents and other members of the high school students. It's just a lovely um, uh, model, right? To really do that kind of community building model with everybody sort of convening at the community hub that is the school. So lovely, lovely, great work, and wonderful that you're able to turn it into a bike skills informal way and promote that piece of physical literacy too. Wonderful. Excellent. Well, thanks to our speakers and thanks to everyone. Now, I'm just going to really encourage everyone to send in your questions. We've got a few questions, and if I could ask our panelists to, show up in your video and get ready, because I think there's some questions for everyone here. So I'll start off with Stephen. There was a question here about, first of all, that it was a wonderful program. And what equipment did you find was the most popular, Stephen? And what ages were in your program?
Yeah, so I realized I left out a big chunk of our program information. So we had children 5 to 12, and we ran from April 2nd to June 18th. So that was the length of our program and the ages we catered to. As far as the equipment goes, I have our fabulous program leader, Natalia, here. So she ran the program. So I think she can speak a little bit to the equipment.
Hi, everyone. So I think because we were playing at the park, pretty much, I think the park games are a big success for them. We have like an obstacle course, many kind of game already are there. Also, we have balls, stepping stones, that work pretty well. Padlet, many things. A big rope, a giant rope. They love that.
Yeah.
That was in one of the pictures in the slides, actually. It was very popular.
Yeah.
Baseball and t-ball was also super successful. So we got that. Three-legged races, sack races. We tried to hit all of the physical activity aspects within the equipment that we provided.
Yeah.
It went crazy forts. We bought these things called crazy forts.
Yeah.
So the children could build their own forts. So we had a couple of boxes of those, and that was amazing.
Yeah. Also, the giant tic-tac-toe was super good, super nice. Yeah, they are all around playing and having conversations, thinking in strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Natalia, did you set up those obstacle courses or was that something that was already part of the park?
So the park have already a game
Okay.
on it,
Yeah.
and around that we set up all our games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like some really creative, imaginative play came out of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they came up with their own ideas as well. So
That's
we use
great.
them, yes.
Lovely. Well, thank you. I have another question. I'll just open this up. Maybe you can start, Sarah, and then I'll ask Nicole and Alice to also chime in. So do you have any suggestions for parents on how to get a program started? I guess I'll start with you, Sarah, because yours was the one that had some parent involvement. And, to be honest, when we first started this program, we saw it going through PACs, through parent advisory committees that like parents come and drop off their kids and pick up their kids, and that might be a natural way to build on the natural patterns of caregivers picking up their children, and that some people seem to have extra time and just stick around and let their kids play. But I'll pass it on to you, Sarah. What advice would you give for something that's a little bit more parent led?
I don't know what the whole thing is, the liability question. If you have parents there, then it's fine, which is how our program ended up being. Um, but I don't know if the school can kind of take on some of that responsibility. Um, yeah, it's a tough one, but yeah. I guess that's my answer.
I will just say that we did have a lawyer create some liability forms for us that are good to go in terms of anyone that wants to run a program and is worried about liability. When we were first doing the pre-development of this program and sort of getting some insights from principals and school community leaders, we did hear liability was an issue, and so we did develop a fairly solid liability form. So just saying that if anybody wants to run a parent-run program, we do have that piece covered. Nicole and Alice, do you have any advice in terms of parent-run
I think
programs?
so I sit on the pack
Yeah.
actually at Watson. And so the school is 650, and I would say the amount of volunteers that actually show up and do things are the six parents that sit on the pack. Unfortunately, where our community, we don't have a lot of parents. So if your community had a lot, I probably would encourage to maybe work with a nonprofit and then have the parents as volunteers, just in the sense of I know for us, our program, when there were communication or issues or someone didn't show up, it's nice to have it's nice to have someone there staffed or who's going to be communicating with those parents when there are sticky situations. Yeah,
Yeah, and we when we first approached to the principals with this, they were both so enthusiastic, but very much but you're doing it, right? You're taking it on because they're like, we don't have the capacity.
Mhm.
Our pack doesn't have the capacity. We
Right.
don't have the
Right.
capacity. So if it's something that you guys want to do, great.
Yeah.
But I mean, that would be a dream to have those parents that are so passionate and so willing to give up their time and do this. I mean, that would be amazing. But I think they are rare unicorns sometimes to find.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, Marta, you're one of those rare unicorns,
Mhm.
and Marta can get something started at her school and show us that model. I will say another model that we did have was a principal led with the EAs, the educational assistants staying over, and so they used the grant to extend the paid time for those educational assistants to stay and monitor the playground a few times a week. That's another different model that also worked in our pilot Pilot phase. I have a question here about a funding source for snacks, and I will just say that the BC Alliance grant does allow for snacks. Did anyone else get other funding sources for snacks? Okay. I have a question about winter and fall activities and whether the program was entirely outdoors and what time did it start and what time did it end? Who wants to go first on this?
We
Okay,
can
go
go
ahead.
first.
Yeah.
So we only offered it this spring because that's when we got the grant. But we are hoping to offer it in the fall and the winter. We're having some debate together as to what that will look like, especially during those winter months. But I am a firm believer that there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. So perhaps there's an idea that we use some of that funding to purchase like a clothing bin that has some rain pants or rain jackets and equipment. Because I'm sure for those of you who have kids and you pick up your kids at the end of the school day, their rain gear is soaked. They're not going to want to put it back on. But
If they had brought it in the first place.
if they even
Yeah.
brought it in the first place, that's right. And we did have in our wording to parents that this is an outdoor only program. So come rain or shine, we're outdoors. And
Yeah.
we, like at both of our schools, there is no capacity to have any indoor space.
Yeah.
So it is just outside. So in extreme weather, there may be days where we'd have to cancel if there was thunder or hail or something like that. But the idea is that it stays outside. And as far as activities, it's unstructured. It's kind of what the kids come up with. So, adding some loose parts to the scenario or some equipment is kind of what it should be. It's kind of the basis of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I will say at our school, we have that kind of a little covered area that used to have some kind of spaces for like just some lines drawn out, I think for Foursquare and that sort of stuff. And so that was a space that worked at one of the schools that
One other
I
thing,
see.
sorry to interrupt you, Rita.
No, go ahead.
We did have a day where there was extreme rain and there was puddles everywhere. And kids, no matter what shoes they were wearing, were just wading through these puddles and were as happy as pie and like no complaints of being cold or wet. Like they just loved it. So it's kind of fun to watch them just embrace the weather and just,
Splash in the puddles,
yeah,
like kids
splash
are
in the
supposed to
puddle.
do,
Yeah, just
right?
have a good day. Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. That's wonderful. I have a question here. It says, thank you, Nicole and Alice, for sharing this wonderful program. Was there a cost to this program for parents?
No.
No, so
No.
it was a free program for parents, which made it really accessible for everyone, which was great.
Yeah. And that was the stipulation. If you're going to get a grant from the BC Alliance for Healthy Living to lead an active play club, it does have to be offered for free because that's the whole reason is we're trying to remove barriers to physical activity and to active play and so that's one of the things that we like to promote is free and accessible. I have a question here about the liability forms. Absolutely, we will send those out. Here is a comment from Sarah in Port Hardy. We have worked with the school and we're able to use the gym on nasty weather days, as well as undercover areas, and open the supply closet to allow free play. So that's great that you're able to do that in Port Hardy, because I know it certainly gets some rain there. And I'm just wondering, that looks to be almost all of our questions. Oh, no, here we go. I guess Natalia, what were the biggest changes you've seen in the children who attend Active Play Club from when it first started to when it finished?
Probably the relationship between them. I can notice from the beginning to the end, they were growing. Also, they have connection between them. And definitely the physical part as well. They were playing more, giving suggestions, trying new things. So definitely the social emotional part and the physical part.
No, that's great. That's
Yes.
wonderful to hear that. I've got another one here. Um, it's um, okay. Active play clubs are for children, but part of your goal for Sarah. So part of your goal was to have time for parents to connect with each other. Can you please tell us more about how that worked and uh, how the like parent engagement piece worked?
I think it's just like organic. They just hang around and watch the kids play. And I think sometimes having parents around is actually a drawback because they start to make the rules of the games and that kind of thing. So that's one drawback. But as a parent in an elementary school, some of the greatest connections I made were on the playground after school, just watching our kids play. So I think it's just kind of organic and comes with just putting aside time to do it, which none of us have time to do. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you. I have another question here. Stephen, can you speak a little bit about how did you go about developing a relationship with the principal at Queen's Park? What was how did that look like?
Yeah, so I actually had from this position as a prior relationship with them anyway from my other role as when I managed the Queen's Park Childcare Centre. And so we kind
Okay.
of had that relationship already forged, but I know bringing this program to the principals in the community really does promote that relationship with them. So yeah, I was kind of fortunate that I already had one. And we just had common goals and ideas of what we wanted to bring to the community.
That's great. Excellent. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions. If anyone has any more questions, please send them now. But if not, I'm going to wrap it up. And I just want to thank you, Stephen and Natalia, and Nicole and Alice and Sarah. Thanks so much, first of all, for the fantastic work you do in terms of serving your communities, and not just in this program, but overall. And then also thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience with this. I think, there's a lot that we can all learn from each other, and so thank you so much for sharing that, and for sharing the things that didn't work too, because sometimes we always like to talk about the successes, but I think we learned so much too about what was challenging as well. So really appreciate your time and coming together like this. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we also have an active play guidebook, as well as I mentioned the liability forms. We do have grants. There'll be grants of up to $9,000 per school for a school that wants to lead a fairly longer program, and then shorter, smaller grants for schools that are have a shortened program. And then there's a lot of supports that we'll be providing. And of course, you can learn more at activeplayclub.com. And Carrie McKelvey is our lead for the initiative. So jump over to Active Play Club. Check on the video that features a couple of our schools. It's got a really great little video montage of the kids playing and the program in the Okanagan. And then if you're interested, you can contact Carrie for more information. So thanks to everyone in the audience for your attention and the great questions. We're so glad that you could join us today, and we'll be following up with a short survey. So please take the time to respond, as it really helps us learn from these events and what's working and where we can do better next time. And please also follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at BC Healthy Living, or under the BC Alliance for Healthy Living Society on Facebook. And stay tuned for more knowledge translation events and other programs and initiatives like the Active Play Club. Thanks again for joining us, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Get outside and play a little bit.